Welcome to your awakening. Please take care as your reality is adjusted.
Yeah, I'm muted. There's a good start. Clicking through tabs again, too busy looking at the other streams, as in the look back me stream, look back me. We're getting into Neanderthal mode already. Fucking hell, it's a good start. That looks like it's going. And is that one going? That's what you get for trying to multitask right at the start. Clicking too many buttons all at once. Yes, that one's going as well. Cool. Right, well, we'll figure out which is the most popular chat room shortly. Don't call me shortly. But I will cross-pollinate the links in case people don't have them. It's one of the drawbacks of this kind of multicasting to different channels. Why are you not showing me? There you go. Oh, yeah. Paste, copy and paste. That's the link to the Starship Troopers page of this stream, and doing it the other way around, I'll put the link to my channel into the Starfish Troopers chat. I know it's this kind of stuff that just makes things a bit cumbersome unless you've got the right kind of setup, so that, like me, you can look at multiple tabs and each tab has got a different stream going in it. So I can see multiple chat. If I flick through the tabs, I can look at the chat rooms separately, as it were, for each channel they're on, obviously. And hello to Rumble. If there's anyone lurking and watching on Rumble, good evening. I think there might have been one or two, but I'll get to that in a sec. I'm still doing my multitasking. Right, okay, yeah, I think it's all going. Get there eventually. Now I can look at the StreamYard chat room, which puts them all together into one chat room for me to look at and ignore. Because you know what I'm like, unless I deliberately choose to pay attention to the chat. Generally, I'm too busy yakking to pay much heed to what's going on, and especially when there's multiple different chat rooms. But that's the advantage with the StreamYard, bringing them all together into one. And it should be. Why is that not on screen? One sec. It should be. Yeah, I'm clicking a button. Do it. Right, thank you. Don't know why. Maybe because I switched themes or something. Or maybe because I was messing about looking at different... I don't know, whatever. Somehow that got turned off. But it's back on now. So on the screen at the bottom right, you should be able to see the same as I see from StreamYard. So you should be able to see all three chat rooms joined together. Just to make it a little bit easier for you. You know, if you're somebody who can only access one at a time. Like I said, that's part of the problem of this illusion of choice with this technology. I can multicast to 3 different streams, but then that means you've got like 3 separate pocket dimensions. And whether people bother to cross those dimensional barriers, yeah. But I know that most of you are well aware of all that stuff and you're quite able to cope with it. And I'm just waffling to fill in time while we get going, and I'm clicking buttons and making sure everything's running. We will get there eventually. Yes, welcome back once again to another edition of Sol Excalibre on this Moon Day evening. Do all the intro stuff. I think we're up to episode 8 currently of this series, isn't it? Yeah, episode 8, the Infinity episode. And the number 8 is the Infinity. Maybe we'll touch on some of that stuff that might represent that. It's not an 8 in the numerological date, is it? No. 232. If it was, if you write it in American format where they put the month first and then the date, it'd be 223, which could have some occultic significance if you bother to use a mirror to look at the number and blah, 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 because, you know, they love doing that kind of cryptic symbology. So 223 can be used as a synonym for 322, and 322 is the code number for the Skull and Bones Society. They call themselves a society. Fraternity, because that's all they originated as. Not to say that it started out innocently at all. No, it didn't, obviously. But yeah, Skull and Bones presents itself as an academic frat house, a fraternity house in the American system. But that's just the cover that enables them to run their little franchised lodge, so that they can headhunt people as they go through that particular academic institution. Is it Harvard or one of the others? I'm not sure now where it's located and where it started. But anyway, yeah, there's plenty of info out there if you're interested in the history of that stuff. But that's not exactly what I'm going to be talking about tonight. And right, let me get back to me full chat room first, and we can do the saying hellos and everything while I explain some of the other stuff that's, well, should be obvious. Yeah, if you haven't noticed, yeah, it's just me in the room tonight. I can make myself bounce around a bit. Can I go to the other side? I'd have to make a separate theme for that, wouldn't I? I was just thinking, if I make a theme where it's on the camera's on each different side of the screen, then you could just be silly and flick through, making yourself bounce around. Yeah, stop being silly and distracting yourself. Get back to saying hello to everyone. And yeah, there's only me in the room tonight. Pete left me a message saying he'd got stuff he needed to do, so he probably might turn up later. He's done a rob on me, basically. I think he's gone off to jump on the mothership to go somewhere to get updated or something. You know, he's gone for the latest upload. Or he's having a new bit of firmware fitted, whatever. But yeah, he's not available. So he set the Rumble page up for me. Yeah, because Rumble's going all right. So that connected okay. Yeah, I just couldn't change the title, obviously. But yeah, he set the Rumble page for me ready. Because unfortunately, that's how it works with Rumble. You have to have a page to act as a sort of connecting link for StreamYard to find it. That's the way their API works. So if he hadn't set that page up beforehand, I wouldn't have been able to connect the live stream to it, basically. So that would have meant I couldn't. Well, I suppose I could have connected it to my channel on Rumble, because I do have a channel on Rumble. It's just I don't really make much use of it. So most people probably don't even know it exists, let alone me doing anything with it. I felt it was better to focus on the Starship Troopers channel, because we'd already got that rolling, as it were. And for me, my Rumble channel is more there as a backup and as a functionality of dealing with the censorship on YouTube. So as and when required, I could post stuff to Rumble if I needed to. In the same way with the Odyssey channel, I just haven't made any use of Odyssey in recent times, because it's basically just drifted into the usual shit that happens with services, with platforms that connect themselves to cryptocurrency. Because I'm worried that Rumble might very well end up the same, but they claim their wallet, their crypto wallet, is not linked totally to just their own platform. It's a functional wallet for whatever you want to put in there, digital wise. Yeah, so cryptocurrencies or other forms of digital vouchers or currencies or whatever. So in that sense, hopefully it'll avoid that trap, because I think that's partly how they've taken down some of the platforms, by persuading them to start their own IP, their own crypto coin, or to float their own crypto coin. And then basically they use that as a financial hammer to beat them down, you know, to basically get the service gobbled up by the people with the money to buy all their coins, all their tokens. They turn into what they call whales on the platform, but then that basically means eventually there's only one who's bought the whole fucking thing. But yeah, anyway, I don't make much use of Odyssey anymore, so it's mainly YouTube with Rumble as a backup if I need it. But as you know, I think most people have got used to that current environment. So yeah, even if Pete isn't here to change the subtitle for me, he did set the room up ready to go. So thanks, Pete, for doing that. I did send him a message saying the same thing, but as I said, he said he might be able to turn up later. So we'll see if he shows up. If not, you just got me blathering at you. But maybe that means I might actually read more of your comments because, I'll have to actually interact with you directly. I can't use Pete as a vicarious shield, If you believe that shit, you haven't been around for that long. Yeah. I've always been terrible at interacting with the chat unless I actually focus on it, because I tend to get that wrapped up in my own points that I'm trying to share. I ain't got time to take in extra information while I'm blathering. That's just too much multitasking. That's like chewing gum and walking at the same time. No. Anyway, shut up and get on with it. Hello to everyone in the chat. Hello to everyone that's tuned in, all the lurkers and time travelers. If you're lurking around out there, that's cool. You don't have to say stuff in the chat. It's just there if you want to. And hello to all the people that will watch afterwards, which I know there will be some. That's why I like to call them time travelers, because, they're tuning in after the live event. Right, okay, so I can see all of the chat rooms in one. Hello, good evening. I think, that's in Rumble, yeah. Tactical Gnome was in the Rumble chat early. I don't know when you went into there. I didn't have the timestamps activated, but hello to you. Thanks for joining in. And then we've got James in the honorary first position in the chat room, in the YouTube chat rooms. And that's thanks to Roberto. Thanks, Roberto. Good evening to you. Word. Definitely. I'm flicking through the channels again without needing to. So I keep going to check which chat room it's in when there's no need for me to be doing that. Just look at the one chat room. It's easier. Mascara Snake. Good evening, mate. Thank you for the musical clips. And Paula, whoosh. We're going to get plenty of whoosh tonight, I think. There's just a lot of major stuff shifting around at the moment. So there's a lot of sort of energy in flux, which to me is somewhat, that word is representative of that kind of thing, if that makes sense. Yeah, maybe it's just me and my interpretation. But, Lynn, good evening. Another crazy observer. We're going to talk a little bit about crazy observers, because I know we all, for those of us that have been looking at this kind of stuff for many years, we're used to being called crazy. So we have a collection of crazy observers, not suspicious observers. Rick, good evening, Rick. You're posting all these boobies in the chat. It's just, we've got AI to do that now. Not that I'm going to be making any use of it, because I don't want to get caught up in all that shit. But like, your three boobies look a bit wonky. Sorry, I think you need to address that. Roscoe, good evening, mate. Good to see you from the Kanukistan. It's been a bit, the Americas as a whole has just got really crazy recently. Nick Chief, good evening, mate. Good to see you in the chat. You were still living in London, as far as I remember. I hope you're, managing to avoid the fucking craziness down there at the moment. No Jab, good evening. I was just thinking of saying similar about Ireland. I'm going to end up in a trap of like having to say the same thing about everywhere. So yeah, I know it's crazy over in Ireland as well at the moment. Rob, good evening, Rob. Not Health Freedom UK, Rob, but not a Dr. Rob. I'm genuinely concerned. Good evening, mate. Thank you for joining in. That was some crazy guy called Harry Cookie Monster posting links in the chat. How dare he? Steve, good evening, Steve. And Rebecca, good evening, Rebecca. Google has actually shown me some of your cat videos. I'm saying kitten just because that's usually the thing, isn't it? Kittens, people prefer kittens over cats. So the predominant video clips are usually kittens. Some of your cat videos, like, it doesn't show me other stuff, but all of a sudden up pops a video about a cat. Okay, thanks, Google. I don't know what Google wants me to focus on, They're happy to recommend videos of cats to me, but not other stuff. I'm still scrolling. Hello to anyone. If I missed you out, apologies. I'm trying to get on with it. Irish, good evening, Irish. Is it regular live streams you do on your channel, or was it your channel? Somebody was linking them in the chat the other night. Sorry, I don't remember if it was on your channel or somebody else's. But Nitsud, good evening, Nitsud. 223 is 556. Yeah. It's close, but not quite. I'm not sure if that's part of why they like it, but Angry North, good evening, mate. Good to see you. And Sonia, good evening, Sonia. Yeah, hopefully I managed to hurry up in the scrolling without missing anyone out. I'm trying to just get on with it so I can get back to blathering about all the other stuff. It's going to get to a stage possibly where I spend far too long doing this. I apologise to all of you, because it may have been a habit that I developed that as eventually it's going to get to a stage where it becomes too burdensome. Fizz, hello, mate. Just simply because if there's loads of people in the chat and it takes me so bloody long, Lick, good evening, because I'm so slow and incapable of multitasking. Yeah, well, we'll see. I'm happy to do it while I still can. Yeah, right, I've got to the end of the chat. Cool, way. I was going to say, like, please stop talking so I can get to the end of the chat. No, it's just me being crap at it. I'm sure if I hurried up and if I talked quick, I could actually get through it a lot quicker. And I think it's something that is worthwhile doing. I'm not saying that, I'm being deliberately analytical without getting caught up in the elements of any potential emotional connections, because over time, given enough time, even if you never actually meet people physically, you can still develop friendships through online interactions, So given enough time, if you're doing the same kind of gatherings like we do with these shows, with these broadcasts, with these sort of get-togethers, I know it's in a virtual space, but we're still sort of gathering around the virtual bonfire or burning trash can, as Steve usually likes to use that reference, a typical kind of old oil can with just throw a few things in to get it warmed up and cast some light so you can gather around somewhere and get together and have a chat. The more you do that kind of thing, the more you do inevitably end up building relationships with people. But it gets to a kind of mercenary stage where, and I know I've tried to sort of explain this in a way to help get a grip or an understanding of why the media is not necessarily a bad thing per se. It is just another technology. It's how we utilize it and how we apply it. And in the same way, that's kind of what I'm describing, you know. We can use this technology as means to gather together, and from those interactions, eventually, potentially, you don't know, you can't predict every outcome, but potentially you can develop friendships and relationships. You know, you can have long-standing interactions with people over many years. I know I have, via this technology. I've never actually necessarily met some people, but I've interacted with them via the internet technology for literally decades. You know, so you build up a relationship with them. That doesn't mean necessarily you form a loving relationship where you might end up like the classic kind of dating, online dating idea. That's possible, yeah, sure, but that's not generally how most people use this communication tool. You know, for most of us, it is a communication tool where, yeah, you can build friendships, but you're not really getting to know somebody in this kind of sense that it would be, I feel anyway, would be necessary to build a literal physical relationship with somebody. You know, in other words, eventually getting together and maybe sharing a home together or getting married, even, you know, all the usual kind of relationship concepts. Sorry, I'm losing my voice already. There's just so much I want to waffle about. I'm trying to get into it too quick. Right. I will play some music later, but I'll try and spread it out a bit. And I still have to sometimes edit the music out because Google still doesn't seem to be able to comprehend the idea of fair use. It's one of them legal principles that's just sort of left the discussion many years ago. Yeah, it's hardly ever brought up anymore. Now the fences have been pulled in so far that something like fair use is well outside the fence of being sort of direct concern to people anymore. Now we're so sort of on the hard edge of the loss of free speech, full stop. You know, talking about ideas like fair use in terms of material in a being used on a medium, whether it be visual or audio, you know, radio or TV, whatever, but making use of other people's work, other people's creations in a fair use manner. Do you hear that discussion anymore? No, it just doesn't really exist anymore. And now we've got AI. The concept is pretty much meaningless now because the AI is doing that literally 24/7. That's how it learns. Yeah, that's why there's been this. There has been a little bit of debate in the background, but it certainly hasn't been generally shared with the public, in terms of the public hasn't really been invited into this conversation, because in the long run, they don't give a fuck what you think about it because they're going to do it anyway. So the training and the application of the AI tools, primarily what most people know as the LLM stuff, yeah, like ChatGPT and Claude, those kind of systems, they have been allowed to break legislation. I would say law, but you know that there's that difference, a distinction between lawful and legal. You know, so the kind of area that they're dipping into does arguably eventually get into the realm of law, because you're talking about stealing, about theft, and that's a primary law concern. Yeah, that's the concern of primary foundational laws. But legislation is most definitely being constantly broken by these systems because they've been allowed to just access the internet, and in effect the system does this itself for itself. Yeah, obviously there's subsystems within systems that enable this process to work, but they send out what you could think of as like search bots across the internet in the same way as Google works. They send out these little code think of them as like code bots. They're little robotic systems that do a simple function and bring the information, bring data back to the home server. The AIs use that kind of method to hoover up data from the internet, and then they use that data to teach themselves or to learn from that information. And most of that learning is in an algorithmic stacked fashion. So basically it calculates probabilities. So it goes from two polar extremes that it compares, and then it finds the next medium down or the next mean line in between those two. And then it does the same thing again and again and again and again until it resolves down to what its cascading algorithm indicates is the highest functional scoring fitting value to match the initial request, the initial inquiry. So in other words, what is the most beautiful nose? You know, if you ask the AI a question like that, basically it'd go out and gather all the information it can about noses and what people think of them. And then it would compare extremes through that kind of cascading process of comparison to find the median line between two extremes, and eventually get to a point where it says, oh, the answer would be such and such. You know? I'm massively simplifying it, of course, because there's nested systems within systems or correlations of, it's very fractal in that respect, and correlations of similar comparisons. So it might take people's opinion on the whole face, because obviously the nose and your concept of the nose reflects on the rest of the face and the balance of the facial features and that kind of stuff. Yeah. So it ends up in a similar way to what people refer to as a polymath, somebody who doesn't restrict themselves to specializing only in one particular subject. They take information from wherever, they learn about multiple different subjects. And they get a better general perspective and comprehension of a question or a subject matter because they can see it within its position or its role within the rest of the wider context, you know, the rest of the world, the rest of the universe, basically. Yeah. Specialization is useful for developing certain ideas or concepts, but it's not really a true picture of reality. You know, it's one of the drawbacks of that kind of academic obsession with specialities. But that's partly why they fix that into the academic system. But yeah, I'm digressing all the way away from the subject matter. It is interrelated. What I've just been blathering about is interrelated, and you could probably think of ways that it is once I explain to you what I put in the subtitle for this week. Aliens, Squiraliens. Yeah, it's almost like somebody shouted squirrel, but then they tried to correct themselves, and instead of saying squirrel, they were trying to say aliens. You know, it's squirrel, but aliens. Squirrel is alien. It's an alien, or you know, the thing you should be suddenly jumping to notice is the alien. But you know, in a mimetic sense, thanks to the internet primarily, but that isn't really where the root of this concept started from. TV media, maybe. Yeah, I think mass media via TV output maybe was the root of this kind of idea. But the use of that classic kind of distraction technique, where somebody will say, "Look over there," yeah, because you're right in their face trying to say something to them or whatever, or asking them a question, and they want you to just turn around and look the other direction so they can run off or do something else. You know, I know that, you know, that's very sort of childish playground level kind of standard of what do you mean by distraction, but that is where that sort of root of that meme or that trope comes from. In the internet, it developed into the meme of the squirrel. So when you know, something would happen via the internet, you would only become aware of it via the internet usually. You know? But something would occur that most people suddenly just couldn't help themselves what they wanted to pay attention to. You know, it's like the jingling keys that the adult will use to distract the little child. or it's the posing of the attractive magician's assistant in a sparkly costume. She strikes a pose whenever the magician's doing something technical, just to make sure she's the one that's got the public's, the audience's attention. And in the same way, we used to play games with each other when we were in physical proximity to other. Like, well, I say we, me and some of my old mates, and I've no doubt other people did similar things. It was a bit of a trend back in the 90s, I know that. And interestingly enough, the internet started in the 90s. But anyway, we used to just do that. Well, in the middle of a conversation, did you all look at my fingers? I know I'm sort of, not exactly full screen or whatever, but even on a smaller screen, I think you would have seen that, yeah? And I'll be surprised if the majority of you didn't look at my fingers. Because unfortunately, that's just a truism. That's the way we are, because that's part of our biological operating. That's the way we deal with this natural environment. We need to be able to pay attention to changes in the environment for survival reasons. So therefore our brain is hardwired to, when we see something new added to our vision or our perceptive range, we pay a quick attention to it, even if it's just a glance. Which is often why, again, this has become a bit of a trope with the kind of side eye thing. The side eye is more a bit of a kind of communication of connection with the person who's viewing what's happening. But also that trickery that you can do with someone, where you ask them, say for example, if somebody said, "Where is your 1984 book?" And I would uncontrollably, I'd look at the bookshelf, even if it was just a glance. So you could ask somebody like, "Where have you hidden the key?" And you'd watch their eyes and you'd see where they glance, and they'd say, "Oh no, it's not here. It's somewhere else. Jeffrey took it away with him." But they can't help themselves but look to where they hid it. Again, it's connected to deep psychology of how we work as a biological entity in this natural realm. It helps our survival chances, basically. We're not as dumb as dodos when we see something move. Yeah, exactly, Rick. Moving into our environment, we pay attention to it. As I say, even if it's just a glance, we pay it a quick bit of notice. We notice it, and we make a quick assessment of, is it something worth my time, for whatever reason. So yeah, just doing silly things like that. We used to do that with each other, quite often. It was part of our how can I put it, in a kind of male bonding, attacking each other, but in that friendly fashion. This is something that I know is considered male or masculine toxicity now in this modern environment, isn't it? But you usually get this kind of interaction with most males when they're in groups. They will have banter in one way or another. Sometimes that's just direct wordage. Sometimes, there's some people who like to be more physical. Like you'll get that friend who likes to, give you a knock in the shoulder when he meets you. "Oh, you all right, mate? You all right, mate?" And he can't help himself but feel a need to touch you. But that's also part of that testosterone-created competitive need that it emanates in that kind of way when males get together in groups. You'll usually find they end up settling in a system that's similar to a pecking order, just like women develop a pecking order amongst themselves. It's friendship groups. We all do it. There's nothing wrong with it. It's natural. It's only wrong if you abuse it, if you use it to abuse other people. But there's nothing wrong with that kind of group interactions. That's how people have always naturally interacted. Some people interact differently to others. Some, like I say, feel a need for an actual physical contact. And obviously, amongst males, that doesn't mean usually, getting in close and giving them a hug and a kiss on the cheek. Often that kind of more female orientated thing. Maybe it depends on who you're interacting with, and certainly I think in a modern context, the concept that most people have now about masculinity is you're either one or the other. Everything's very black and white and polarized. You're either a super macho testosterone guy, like the way the media shows us the kind of portrait of the Chad. You know, you got this super-sized fucking jawbone, and whoa, and you wouldn't do any of that shit because it's gay, mate. You can't be hugging each other. Nah, it's gay. Or you're a complete soy boy and you're almost verging into femboy territory. That's the way the media portrays it, because the media likes to work very much in stereotyped opposites, polar opposites. That's why you'll keep encountering the same old arguments about it's this or it's that. Do you agree? What do you think? Everybody's talking about whether it's this or it's that. And they try to create either discussions, usually for daytime TV, it's like a discussion show kind of thing. Or if it's news media, it's some kind of argumentation that's meant to happen between one side and the other. I know that's, getting into the usual kind of dualism kind of stuff, but that is the way they play it out. So, yeah, sorry, rolling back to the point about the Squiraliens. What is it that's been going on recently that they're desperate for a distraction for? Or certainly at least, good evening, Lobsam. Good to see you, right? Pete might be here later. He's not here at the moment. But, well, you'll see him if he shows up in the chat or whatever, or if he turns up in the room. But yeah, he's not here at the moment, so say hello from a distance. Yeah, I don't know. This initiates that conversation or that consideration, because sometimes people just want to sit and think about stuff for themselves. They don't necessarily want to talk about it with others, but that consideration about, well, what do you mean by distraction? What are we being distracted from? And how do you discern the thing that is a distraction from the thing that is meant to be actually requiring your attention? Squiraliens! Yeah, are you meant to be looking at the squirrel, at the aliens? Are they the main bit of information that's so amazing and fantastic that you really need to know about at the moment? Or are you meant to be looking at the other stuff that's going on? And we most definitely, absolutely are. And I know this can get bogged down into a religious argumentation, usually for a lot of people anyway. But we most definitely are in a period of apocalypse now. Many of us have spoken about this kind of idea or this kind of conceptual principle, because that's really what it is. It's a concept talking about a principle of how it has been noticed throughout history, such that it's become recorded in history, and it's been recorded in ways that are undeniable because they've been recorded by multiple different cultures from different directions of perception and interaction. So you can't say, oh, it's all biased from one side that are the winners or whatever. This is not a controlled media outlet like a 1984 Big Brother broadcast. This is a general accumulated knowledge base of our species on this planet from different cultures over long periods of time. Civilizations or societies, because not always, they don't always grow to a large size that they'd be called or referred to as a civilization. So maybe societies is a better way of describing them. Societies go through these peak and bust periods, just like pretty much everything else in this reality. If you can apply a bit of natural philosophy, perception and consideration on how nature does its thing when you're not interfering with it, pretty much everything goes through sine waves in this existence. It gets bigger and better and bigger and better, and then it needs to decline for a bit for whatever reason. because of outside forces, usually, because we're dealing with an environment that is, in one description, can be viewed as pressure mediation within a medium. I don't know, it sounds like just a really quick, simple, very debased and simplistic way of describing it, because I could try and explain all the complex ways that interacts. But yeah, it's when it comes down to it, you're dealing with bubbles of pressure. So the sine wave going up is when that particular thing, let's call it a plant, we're talking about a particular plant and its growth cycle. Its growth cycle is on the up. It's getting bigger. It's getting greener. It's getting more leaves. It's getting away. It's growing out. It's pushing out. It has enough energy, enough vigor, enough animus of the eternal fire, as Gandalf would say, the eternal flame, to keep going out, to create space for itself within this environment, to push all the other media outwards to allow itself space to grow. But eventually its strength, its energy, its process begins to level out and then begins to decline. And it no longer has enough strength or ability to hold its shape, to hold its resonance, to keep itself together, basically, on an atomic level, or subatomic, whatever. However you want to describe it, I think you get what I'm trying to point at, in that respect. On the most basic level of its existence, it's no longer got the energy to hold itself together in the same kind of manner such that it can push outwards into this environment. So it gradually starts to recede. And eventually, as life cycles go, especially if you're talking about organic stuff, as our life cycles go, eventually it starts to break apart because it no longer even has the energetic ability to hold all its bits together. So it starts to lose leaves, it starts to lose small twigs and branches, etc. Yeah, you know how it goes. Yeah, natural process of gradually fading back into the soil that it grew out of. And I know, we could wax lyrical about, we're all stardust. Given enough time, everything returns back to the prima materia, as the alchemists like to call it, which I would think is the ether. That's the prima materia. Eventually, everything goes back to that. So it goes through this sine wave process. So we can look back across history and we can compare to the way this natural environment operates and does its thing. And we can see how there is this sine wave of growth and decline, peak and bust, peak and bust. And normally what happens at that peak period is the organism or the society in this aspect, we're talking about a conceptual thing that we label as the society, these organized beings who gather themselves together and work in a way that's similar to how a body operates. But that's another discussion. But it's interconnected. But it reaches the peak of its growth and its energy and its vigor and its animus. So it begins to decline. But normally, once it's reached that peak, it's able to get its tendrils into everything, everywhere, all at once. So it becomes somewhat omniscient. It's certainly not omnipotent anymore because its physical vigor is fading. Maybe it's omnipotent in certain respects, but it's not complete. So using the word omnipotent would be incorrect. But it certainly becomes omniscient of itself. It knows all its own parts. The people who operate this system know full well all of its darkest alleyways, its darkest underbelly. This is what's being revealed at the moment. And that, I think, is the point that every organism gets to. A point of realization that it no longer has the energy to keep sustaining itself. And in that is an ability to no longer try and hold on to things that it utilized in one way or another to enable its growth. how did the current system get to the scale that it is now, a global reaching network, an octopus, as some have described it in the past, or a squid? Octopus, I think, is one of the classic images that we use to try and describe it. The hydra as well is a similar visual metaphor, symbolic metaphor. But they've utilized loads of different techniques to enable them to keep growing and growing and growing and spreading their power, spreading themselves, spreading their branches into every avenue they could get into to influence it. But when it goes past that point of peak, when it's crested the top of the sine wave of its capability, and there is this maybe even unsaid or unacknowledged, it may not have the self-awareness at the moment of peak to realize that it's one of those words at the moment. I know, I apologize for using it this much, but it's unfortunately necessary for this exact reason. Once it's crested that peak, it may not have the self-awareness, and certainly not if it's caught up in the hubris of its own egomania, because it believes it's so invincible, it's so all-powerful, because it's at the peak of itself. It has accumulated so much strength and ability, it feels unassailable. Like the dragon, like Smaug flying out of the mountain to confront the armies, to go and kill them. He feels unassailable, he feels invincible. He can never envisage the concept of his end. So he's completely, totally in the moment of his power. That's all that matters, is that power to be able to dominate this environment, which includes you, includes us. We are part of that environment that they are trying to perpetuate themselves in. And I keep using the plural. I know I'm using metaphors that are singular or individual, I know, but I'm trying to present a consideration when we're talking about multiple people here, so it's a plural in that respect. The usual cabal, the usual they and them and all that kind of label. But they're so wrapped up in the hubris of their own egomania because they feel unassailable. But they don't have the self-awareness to realize that, oh shit, that's their peak moment. That is them having that moment of omnipotence. But in that omnipotence, they have flexed their muscles so much that they can no longer deny or hide or disguise the fact that they're using those muscles to dominate everyone else around them. In other words, to put it in another simpler metaphor, to mince down the words, the massive bully on the street corner, by standing there flexing his muscles and pushing a few of the little guys around, he's demonstrated that as far as he's concerned, he's the biggest guy on the street, so he's the current king. That means anybody else who's in that reign of competition knows who to target. He's just labeled himself. He's just revealed the fact that he thinks he's at the peak of his abilities. Know thy enemy, know the psychology of your enemy. When they reach that level of overconfidence, they cannot prevent the truth of themselves being revealed. And if anything, they actually want that revelation because they feel so invincible. Just again, like Smaug, I'm using Smaug as the metaphor because I think this is deliberately why Tolkien wrote him in this kind of way, why he described his character in this way, etc. Exactly, it's demigod mentality. That's the point we've got to now. I think asked questions recently, like whenever in history have you known or heard about leaders who parade up and down in front of the audience via the camera, saying, look at me, look at how powerful I am. I can commit a genocide and there's nothing you can do about it. Look at how powerful I am. They want you to acknowledge them in that way. They need it. They need that validation to consolidate their power. That's what they think anyway, that's part of that deception that for many people they label as being satanic or anti-life or anti-Christ, that kind of principle, because they can't not trip themselves up. I know that sounds silly. You'd think, oh, if they're so clever that they become so powerful, you know, if they've managed to get themselves into these positions of power, surely that means they must be quite clever. They must be quite capable, you know, to do that. But maybe some of them are in some ways, but they still have an element of hubris or an Achilles heel that they themselves don't ever seem to be able to realize, because they resort to methods and principles and approaches that inevitably are self-defeating. You know, the beast will eat itself anyway. I was going to use Smaug as the metaphor again. You know, Smaug wants the villagers, the townspeople, to see how mighty he is. You know, same when Bilbo breaks into his secret hordes and, you know, he's running around invisible because he's got the ring on and he's taunting Smaug. And Smaug just wants him to acknowledge how powerful he is, you know, to say something that ingratiates him. So he's like a king, like a demigod, like a being, a personality that thinks they are unassailable, invincible. Oh, hi, headlight for sale. Hi, Gordon. Hope you're all right, mate. Yeah, so we've seen a lot of this recently. And I know I've been sort of using, like I do, quite a few metaphors and analogies and just trying to paint images with words, because I think that is, I find that to be a helpful way to consider the fundamental ideas and principles and morals and ethical questions or conundrums. This is something. The dogs are going a bit crazy outside. Somebody's. No, stop now. Maybe just somebody chase it after a stick. You know how much dogs love sticks. Yeah. But yeah, that oh fucking hell, forgot where I was now. Chasing after that principle of power. Yeah, using metaphors to talk about ideas of morals and fundamental principles of how reality works, and also how I think this is where it gets into opinion. You know, how I think or feel is a beneficial or non-beneficial way to interact with this reality. That's what I say. I'm quite happy to say that's often just my opinion, because we're talking about things that cannot necessarily be proven in any common sense kind of way. But yeah, the subtitle of Squiraliens. I could have thought of a few other titles as well, but if you saw the Daily Starfish that Pete uploaded, I'm not sure if it was the one yesterday or today now. I think it was the one yesterday. It included quite a few clips about the robotic systems and the AI systems that are now being applied to looking for and figuring out cures for cancer. So isn't it funny how there's so much stuff going on at the moment, and the people who are operating this, what is, I would argue, the primary methodology that runs the entire system. It's not the only dog in the race, as it were. Yeah, there's other dogs trying to manipulate this system. But the one that seems the biggest, and it currently seems to be driving the primary direction of the herd of the population of humanity, they are currently, and have been for a while now, certainly for a couple of years, maybe since the COVID 2020, maybe 2020 had a more significant timeline explanation rather than just to do with the illness, whatever, or, you know, the fakery of it. Maybe there was some other reason why that date in particular was they needed to do something on that date. That plan happened to fit the bill, you know. But they have been actively revealing themselves more and more. And I think it is that inevitable hubristic natural principle, because again, I can argue that this is a natural process of how this environment works. Just because it's been applied to a society or a civilization or a population that might number in billions doesn't matter. The same, fractally, the same basic principles of how the function operates is the same. Well, there you go. There's Pete in the chat. Hi, Pete. Yeah, is this the moment when the natural cycle of the existence of this current paradigm of our civilization has reached and passed its peak? And in that moment of passing the peak, it couldn't help itself but go through the process of seeding its own destruction. Because if you haven't figured it out yet, and I know I've been talking about it for many years, and I can often talk in poetic language, so maybe you didn't get the message, or you didn't quite link the words together in a way that I was intending to get the message across. But this reality, this physical existence experience, is a literal transformation machine. It is a perpetual motion machine that constantly transforms everything from one thing into something else. In our limited timeline, restricted lifespan, restricted experience and perception, because we have a limited perception of how far out we can see and perceive, and so therefore how much we can consider part of the equation in calculating the end result. This reality takes stuff, what most people have been taught and carry on thinking that we refer to as physical material, matter. It takes this stuff and it transforms it from one shape into something else. And then it does it again and again and again and again. And it's only our biological existence that includes a timeline, lifespan, limitation, means we don't get to see enough of it to realize that this thing is actually everything all at once, because we experience what we refer to as time. We come up with a concept that we call time to help us conceive of this experience of everything's constantly fucking changing, even though most of it still feels the same. When I get up in the morning, the ceiling above me is still the same. When I walk into the living room and I open the curtains, the world outside the window looks pretty much still the same. So it isn't exactly changing. You know, Pete, add yourself in whenever you want, mate, in case you're doing stuff. All right.
Boobs. Hi.
Yeah, maybe later. But we are constantly in this environment where only our timeline perception gives us the false impression that things are static and stay the same. In reality, nature doesn't stay the same. And nature has inbuilt methods and principles of how it does what it does that are keyed to the process of change, the process of transformation. So nature will, I mean, I'm using the word inevitably. Yeah, I will be in a moment, use the word inevitably. But please remember that what I've just been saying about the fact that it is our perception of time, of what we call and conceive of as time, that makes us think that way. For the inevitability of nature to take something to its growth potential peak and then initiate a process of self-change, because remember, nothing in this reality is ever truly destroyed. It just changes form. It transmutes. Yeah, it's a nature through its own natural processes, and you can see this all around you in the natural world, takes things to its peak or its potential peak, and then gradually recedes them and transforms that thing into something else. We can see that as the process of life and death in relation to what we call sentient biological beings, yeah, because we can perceive of those things, so therefore we can instantiate them into this reality in a way that has meaning and use to us. Nature itself doesn't give a fuck about that concept because nature just does its thing anyway. But we can apply these ideas on top of how nature operates for us to do other things. And that's part of what makes us what we are, because we can conceive of ourselves of having the ability to choose. And I know this ends up in that inevitable endless argument between free will and determinism, but that literally is what it is. We have the sentient ability to make choices. Yeah, you can have an endless debate about, is it truly free will? Because there's all these people and all these things that can have influence over you. So are you really making a free will? To me, that's a moot point because it's an unanswerable argument. You know, you can't prove it or disprove it because you can't step outside of this reality to experience something different to use as an experimental comparison. So therefore, you're stuck trying to analyze it from within the system itself. You just can't answer that question. Yeah. Maybe in the future somebody will figure out a way to do it. But anyway, I'm trying to wind my way towards playing a song and using a metaphorical segue to explain it. Yeah, there's been a lot that's been going through the media recently that is part of that, what I'm referring to as apocalypse. Yeah, apocalypse, just as a word, as a definition of the word, simply means revealing or unveiling.
Greek, isn't it?
Sorry?
Greek?
Yes, from the Greek originally, yeah. The word itself is Greek, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it simply means something that was hidden is now revealed, that has been unveiled. You know, so
Yep, that's happening.
in a similar way to, in a modern slang sense, a lot of people have been calling it the noticing. And that's something that's just, to me, that's just generational slang.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I chose to refer to it as the awakening because I feel, from my point of view, I feel that word, the use of the word in that way is more apt and descriptive of what I think is going on. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
for a lot of people, they like using the word, the noticing, or the phrase, I should say, the noticing, or just using the word itself, noticing. Yeah. There's a whole lot of noticing.
That's the first step when you start noticing, right? That's like baby steps, like
yeah. And
right at the start. It's good that you notice, but you know,
a political awakening leads to a spiritual awakening. So once they begin, even if the question seems somewhat innocuous, they've opened the door. They've begun the journey. They've stepped across the portal. Yeah, that's the main point. But yeah, for a lot of what's been going on recently, we've been finding out. Maybe I shouldn't include myself in this statement then to explain myself better. The normies, the everyday people, the muggles, the sheeple, think of whatever word you choose that you prefer to suit those people, has been happily being led along. Big shout out, RIP to Big T. Tony made this image, I don't know how many years ago, maybe 2012, I think, something like that. Yeah, just because he's been back in the news again recently because he's trying to stoke the conflict in Ukraine. And he's trying to make the argument that we should be sending UK troops over there, you know, just to act as, you know, friendly people on the side. You know, what the fuck does he think they're going to be doing over there, the twat? Sorry, distracting myself here. For a lot of the normies, they've now started noticing things that maybe they didn't notice before, or what I think is more prevalent of what's been happening, or the more closer description of what's been happening, is they've been going through an apocalypse. For those of us that have been looking at these kind of subjects and questions and information for a long time, for us, it's been a kind of corroboration period. This is why it's got a bit tedious, like pretty much every week for however long now. I've been sat here going, tick box, yeah, that's another one for the conspiracy theories. That's another one for the conspiracy theories. And it's just become tiresome, you know, because it's like the kind of I told you so. I'm not doing it for that reason. I'm not saying it for the I told you so reason, but I'm doing it because it helps us formulate argumentation for when we're interacting with normies who still disbelieve this shit. Right, but anyway, the normies have been fed a steady diet of apocalypse revelation for the past few years. And they're starting to realize that a lot of the things that in the past decades, many of them just dismissed as being insane, crazy, fancy bullshit, you know, the fever dreams of some crazy conspiracy theorist who's frothing at the mouth in his basement while he shouts at the internet like Alex Jones used to, yeah. That was the image they had of this kind of information. Even all the way back, I can remember as a young man, even though I didn't comprehend anything to do with a lot of the bigger picture back then, but even back in the 80s when we had the satanic panic, and I remember at the time, like I say, I was too young to really pay that much attention, but I saw stuff coming up on the news, and I heard my parents mention things here and there, and it was all this concept that ended up becoming defined as a satanic panic. And a lot of it, especially in the American and USA situation back then, was attributed to things like death metal. Yeah, because it was that time period when heavy metal was starting to go through its kind of rebirth, because it had begun like a decade earlier. Late 60s, early 70s was really the beginning of what we know now as heavy metal. But for me, I remember experiencing that sort of gear up change that happened, where there was the advent of bands like Iron Maiden and Motorhead and stuff like that, and the whole thing just sort of kicked up another level, and we got what most people think of the genre of heavy metal began then. Yeah, I dug out one of my old Iron Maiden t-shirts as partly what was making me think of this. Yeah, this is from fucking 82, I think, maybe 1982.
Yeah.
Something like that.
I had my
think.
Iron Maiden phase when I was 13.
Yeah.
So I had the jacket and with all the fucking things on it, right? The jeans
the
jacket.
patches. Yeah, I've still got
yeah.
yeah.
And I never heard a record of him.
But it was about
I just loved
joining
Eddie.
a tribe.
Eddie was great. Eddie was
Yeah.
cool. So,
Yeah.
and
It
I
was
was
about-
in yeah.
It was about joining a tribe. That's a
And
lot
then
of
I
that
started
was
listening
about
to it, and I was
tribalism.
like, "Oh, okay, that's a bit okay." Yeah.
Yeah.
I started listening other music, so
But
I appreciate them now, though, a lot. So they're great.
Yeah. I don't know. You know, shown people have played their music quite a few times. Certainly the earlier stuff. Yeah, I know they got a bit commercial as they progressed, as most of them do, but yeah, the early stuff, and a lot of the lyrics come from Steve Harris, the bass player. There's something about bass players
Of
that
course,
the normies don't like to admit, but I think even people in the
drummers.
music industry understand it. Yeah. There's something more spiritual about bass players and drummers, yes. Whereas guitarists, most of them, not all of them, you know, this is a stereotype, I know, but you know, singers and guitarists seem to be more interested in their image and getting the girlies, the groupies and that kind of thing. You know, they like being famous. But the bass players and the drummers tend to prefer to be in the background. And they usually have a bit more of a spiritual, I want to say, but yeah, whatever. There could be lots of other words to describe it. But my point I was trying to make, before distracting myself again, yeah, the satanic panic back in the 80s. I remember that happening. And at the time, I was just like, yeah, what the fuck? Yeah, I'm fucking, it's probably all just made up crazy stuff from the people who, the extreme Christians in the American churches, you know? Because at the time, we were getting fed a lot of the cable TV stuff was coming over from America. So we used to get a lot of the TV shows, the evangelists, all that kind of stuff. So I'd sort of had a little bit of a cultural sample of it. And when I saw the information about people are claiming that babies are being kidnapped by evil satanic groups and sacrificed in rituals, and they called it the satanic panic. Yeah, that's basically what it got dismissed as. to me, I was just like, yeah, it makes sense. The TV told me that's what's going. Yeah, I believe that. It makes sense. I never really understood then. It was only later on in the 90s and the early noughties when I was starting to sort of put together more of the information that corroborated it, and listening to people like, even though he was over the top a lot back then, Alex Jones. I mean, you say that now, but yeah, he was worse back then, I think. But
Yeah.
even people like him, even back then, I thought he was rather over the top. And I thought most of what he was doing was just for entertainment purposes.
Shock jock.
Yeah. Because we had, oh, fucking hell, what's his name? The guy with the big curly black hair, the Jewish guy.
Oh,
Who
then
was-
in New York, yeah. I had
Yeah,
him in
the classic shock
I had
jock.
him in the Daily the other way.
Yeah, he sort of defined that genre of
Yeah.
entertainment.
Shock.
Yeah, but anyway.
Yeah. He had hookers on and shit.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But over the years, I started to put together that information. And I think what's happened over the past few years now is the normie crowd, the muggles, have been introduced to this information that gives just enough corroboration so that they can no longer believe the
one.
lie that this is all just fictional. Howard Stern, thank you. Thanks, Paul.
Thanks.
Yeah, Howard Stern. Hello, Paul, in the chat. Sorry, I didn't see you earlier. Yeah, they've been given just enough information. In the way the system is playing this whole game out, it potentially is not enough information to be acted upon. But we can talk about that after, when I eventually get to the fucking point.
Mhm.
Spend 10 minutes just trying to get to the point. Yeah. They may have been introduced to enough information, not enough to prosecute potentially, possibly, certainly not enough to make people get out in the street in an outright rebellion. But it is enough to make them go, oh, hang on a minute, I can no longer just dismiss it as being fictional now. I can't trot out the usual argument of, oh, you're just talking about the satanic panic, mate. That was disproved in the fucking 80s. You're just talking shit, mate. No, you can't do that anymore, can you?
No, but
You
it's on a
can't.
different level than Aleister Crowley and that crowd, right? The true satanic church. What was his name? The one.
The true one, arguably, is Aquino, the guy who's in the American Army.
Anthony LaVey or something?
Anthony LaVey is the one that most people know because he set up the official Church of Satan.
Yeah.
But he was a stooge, and that official Church of Satan was meant to be just a limited hangout.
Sure.
It wasn't the real grouping
No,
of Satanists
but
and Luciferians. No.
if you dig into the history of NASA and a bit of those guys, like how much occult was
that would
doing
connect
around
to Aquino,
there. Yeah.
Or Aquino would certainly be interconnected with those kind of groups of people, yes. But
yeah, so it wasn't just rock, but yeah, there are definitely some rock bands out there for sure.
Oh yeah, there were some that were outright and self-professed. Danzig. Yeah, I can't remember his name. The singer out of Danzig, self-professed Satanist.
I think biting off the head of a fucking bat is,
Ozzy said he wasn't.
Yeah.
Even though he did things like that, I would suggest that was
dodgy,
him
though.
playing up to a character.
Yeah, or to the crowd, right, and inspiring them, and
he played that role. And he went in both feet first. He went fully into that role of pretending to be that thing.
Yeah, and then he married her.
If you listen to him talk honestly, no, he wasn't, man.
No. Again,
he might have been a bit messed up because of all the drugs he took, and he did do a lot of drug partying when he was younger. But Satanist, no, he wasn't.
No, but I think that's part of the showmanship, right? They have to perform.
Yes.
They have to kind of perform these things, and maybe he wasn't even aware what he was doing.
How many audience members does the straight-laced nice kitties running on rainbows magicians get? Hardly any. Whereas how many does you might think I worship Satan because I could do such weird fucking shit on stage, including stabbing people, but they're still alive magician get?
Mm-hmm.
People like shock and gore and horror, but presented to them in a sanitized or safe manner. this is why we enjoy fun fair rides, theme parks. Yeah, we
Yeah.
enjoy being taken to the edge of danger, but knowing that we're still safe. So it's like having a security blanket, but being given a rush of jumping off a cliff kind of thing. Yeah. So the nicey nice magicians don't get a lot of work, but the ones that pretend to be worshippers of the devil and all, yeah, it's music business shit, man.
Yeah, record
Like
labels,
the
managers,
Illuminati.
handlers. Yeah.
But that allows me, hey, we get to the point, allows me to segue to why I wanted to play this song. Because all I was thinking about is the sheer number of times that people told me I was insane because I was trying to help them see I say see, you know, in a conceptual mental sense, see how some of these different things added together. And even though there may not necessarily be a kind of outright physical evidence that somebody would want to present in a court case kind of thing, you know, there is no smoking gun necessarily, but the calculation of inevitability that comes out of the end result of when you put all these coincidences together, what do they add up to? And what just so happens to have just happened in front of us, you know? So it's helping people understand now that there is no such thing as a coincidence. All of this stuff happens for a purpose. But yeah, you get labelled insane. And now later on, even though the proof is becoming apparent to a lot of people and they're all starting to notice just that they can't deny this stuff anymore, all of a sudden they don't want to talk about it. They just want to distract you with Squiraliens. Anyway, yeah, I thought this song was appropriate. It came to mind and I wanted to play it. So you're going to have to put up with it, man. But yeah, don't let them call you insane unless they know how to spell it. Going through this process of remembering or noticing, I should say. So, you know, for a lot of us, it's remembering. But that kind of accusation of, all them stories are just crazy people, mate. You must be insane if you think that's what's really happening. You believe that the politicians and the celebrities are eating babies. You must be insane, mate. So that was what originally got me thinking about, insane in the membrane. But then over the weekend, what the fuck's been going on in Mexico, man? And I just thought, you're getting crazy with this thing. Don't you know I'm loco?
Taco.
And I was looking at the footage and Max Egan was walking around saying it was like a war zone and whatever. It's like, for fuck's sake, no, it's not. But I get the point, because he was right in the sense of they obviously deliberately wanted it to look that way. That was the message. But him saying, it's like a war zone here. No, exactly, Max. They want you to think it looks like a war zone. Because when you look at the high view footage, which he himself included a few clips from his apartment balcony or whatever, and also some of the drone footage that's come out, which you showed in your daily today, there
I couldn't show half
junctions at crossroads between main blocks. They had pulled up a car and torched it. That's to make a point.
That happened.
Yeah.
But that was mainly around the tourists.
Exactly.
Because they didn't want the tourists to go out. And
the point they're making is you can either carry on with your agreement with us, your contract with us, where you allow us to make money, or we'll prevent you making money. Because tourism is where you make your money, talking to the government, to the authorities. Tourism is the only place that Mexico makes money. So the gangsters, the cartels have just shown, look, you fuck with our money, we'll fuck with your money. We can shut down this entire town, this entire city. In some cases, they were targeting cities, weren't they? I know, like you said, it's in the touristy areas, but that's the point.
Well, that's what I could show as well. Like, there's a lot of stuff out there that I cannot show.
Yeah.
Because the cartels are not nice people.
No, absolutely not.
So there has been a lot of murders and kills and horrendous shit going on.
Yeah, they'll take the opportunity amongst the chaos to.
Yeah, but they don't see the tourists necessarily as a target, I think, because that would, definitely get the Americans involved. But I think, to me, it's like I saw a lot of Ukraine boys running around there.
Yeah,
former
I've been
Ukrainian
the same thing. Yeah,
trainees. Yeah,
I'm thinking the same thing. Like, it seems a bit, and especially listening to her comments, like I think was you included it in today's one. Is she a prime minister or president, whatever? Yeah, her comments. To me, it seems that high likelihood
she cannot go against. She's dead if she does.
the killing of that guy, main guy, was not initiated by her or her authorities. That's probably
but the only reason she's president is because the cartels have tolerated her.
Yeah, I know.
So,
exactly.
But
that's partly what I'm saying. This doesn't make sense that she would have him killed. What does make sense is that an outside operative, or other opposition to him, other cartels
could be rivals,
possibly. But I think it's more about creating destabilization, which then could potentially provide justification. Because don't forget now, Trump, if he's using that technate, that technocracy map, it includes a big chunk of Mexico.
So Mexico is on the list. There's a new 7-country list, and most of them are in South America.
And the only really viable parts of Mexico, especially if you're an outright capitalist like Trump, the only really viable parts that you would want would be the parts where the tourism is. So that's Cancun.
Yeah, cheap labor.
And the places like were shown in some of those clips. And as far as I know, those are all the places that come under the dome of the technate map. Because that's partly what that map is showing. As if there was the bottom edge of the dome or the circle that's meant to radiate out from North America. That's partly why they want Venezuela. It's also to secure the Gulf, as well as obviously the resources, but in a geostrategic military dominance sense. The main reason they want Venezuela is because it secures the Gulf, because that is in effect the biggest, most secure place to build naval forces. Because you can have them stationed there. There's also other possible connections to the remains of what most people would refer to as Atlantis. Don't forget that possibility. There is still
the aliens bodies that have been found, right? Those mummies thingies there, they are in Mexico. That's Mexico too. So there's a lot of stuff there too.
The dome, the coverage of the dome, or the circle that represents that technate map, if you look at it as just a circle, will include the area that's usually referred to as the Bermuda Triangle, but that's the area where there's places like the Bimini Road and other remnants that are suggested to point towards the possibility that could have been where Atlantis was, and all those sunken remains are, after whatever cataclysm sunk all of that. It stretches out to where the Azores are, and they are the tips of mountains, basically. That's all that's left.
And they already have a replay. I put them in the intro or in the daily as well. I don't think people caught on to that, but the new guy is called El Yogurt.
Well, I suppose they're going to have an original name, isn't they?
Fucking no joke.
At least
seriously.
It's not Taserface.
Abraham Jesus Ambriscano, alias El Yogurt.
I think they missed
El Yogurt.
Maybe there is somebody out there who's part of some gang somewhere.
That's CIA, FBI, fucking jokery. Like, your El Yogurt, your ice cream, your potato chip,
your goat's milk. Don't forget that connection back to the milk.
What flavor? Yeah, good question.
That's the thing. Don't forget
taco.
Milk. I thought about looking for that clip, right? And I thought,
I know.
I just end up sitting there giggling.
They do it themselves. They play the fucking Mexican stereotypical shit while they set shit on fire, right? I don't even have to put Mexican. They're funny. But that is
and
insane.
Culture. That'd be the
Yeah, yeah.
equivalent of us playing some rousing orchestral music while we're going around painting red crosses on islands and shit.
Yeah, they got a mariachi band with them. Yeah. Great.
You're saying that as well. I couldn't help.
You can see it in front of you, right?
I dug out and pointing towards the possibility. I say possibility, not enough proof really, but the possibility that this is some kind of crafted event being used for political reasons. I dug out because I got it on digital file. Have you seen a movie called Once Upon a Time in Mexico?
Yeah.
Yeah, with banderas in it, and it's Tarantino cheese. It's just total fucking cheese.
Yeah.
People jumping through the air because a shotgun was fired and shit like that, and flames going off right in front of the camera and shit. And I was just laughing my fucking tits off. It was like,
suitcase. You had the suitcase. Yeah,
he had the gun in his guitar.
Yeah.
And he's doing the mariachi. That's what their assassins were called, the mariachis.
Yeah. But
shit.
I don't know if this was a bit of a practice run or so, how the media responds, how the social media spreads, and
it might be a renegotiation because one of the tactics the cartels tend to use is if their partner won't agree to a change in the contract, they'll kill their current spokesman to force the other side to replace them, and then they can start the negotiations again. Yeah, to try and force.
Yeah. I could also see something happen like that in Europe or something, or America maybe, but some city.
But that's what I'm thinking of, as in the contract from inside America to those cartels in Mexico, because part of the reason those cartels exist is for the purpose of the big money control in America. They're not a natural emanation of the Mexican people, put it that way.
Someone flew them into Ukraine, have their training, and flew them right back to do this. So
they are military trained, yes.
Yeah, and then
not
doing
only
that with
military
ISIS
trained,
and with all kinds of groups.
They hire people that work in the military mercenary industry.
Yeah.
So these people are not just your local drug dealer on the corner of the street. Absolutely not.
Nor is your ISIS terrorist, right? Yeah. Similar.
Many of them now, especially
kind of
when you get into like the depths of South America, they are basically small nation states unto themselves.
Yep.
They may live within another nation state. So, for example, the cartels that exist in Mexico. Mexico is what we refer to that geographical country as, that region as. But to the cartels, they see it as being fiefdom subdivided between themselves, and they operate each fiefdom as if they fucking rule it, because basically they do. Because if you disagree...
democracy is a front to sell drugs to the rest of the world and weapons and whatever.
Yeah. But it does...
democracy.
It does, I think, bring forward again, or it now compounds the discussion, I think, about this year being a major year when they're going to attempt to destabilize as much as possible. I know Mexico is maybe an easy domino for them to topple, potentially. I'm not certain in that respect, because I think it could be argued either way, because those cartels are largely independent to themselves, in the sense of they have enough capability and enough firepower and enough willingness to apply that firepower that they can resist the onslaught of anything other than the big nation states' militaries.
Yeah, well, it's the thing, right? Somebody gave the order to take that Nacho guy down, or Nacho, or whatever the fuck. That's how the dominoes started falling. So somebody's pulling the strings, and it's obviously not the Mexicans, I think.
And running on the back of what happened in Venezuela, this sort of makes the point of if this is coming from or being directed or being involved with in any way.
She has rejected America, right? So that's why.
Yeah. The big money coming from that direction, from the Anglo-American alliance. They can either.
If she says yes, then she's dead because the cartels will kill her. If she says no, she's dead because fucking America will fucking get her. So
Yeah.
She's between a
Which
rock
is-
and a hard place.
But that also, to me, is why it indicates that it's probably been caused. That whole event has been caused by outside forces for this exact purpose.
Yeah.
It's like the warmongers in Princess Bride. Yeah, that's a good example in storytelling sense. That's their job, to go to wherever the boss or whoever's paying them, to go to the enemy side and create some kind of event or some kind of rumor that causes a war to start. That's their job, to start wars. I don't think you're using that word correctly.
They'll fly her out to Israel just before the shit starts, so keep an eye on her. If she disappears, then you know what's happened.
Yeah, that's partly what I'm wondering now, because I wondered as well about
space alien weapon shit show.
Yeah,
right?
her
And
connections and
fly
stuff.
her out to Israel, to Epstein Island.
Yeah, because I think she's or her name certainly makes me suspicious that she's got Hebrew roots.
Yeah, she's from her husband. Her husband was also, I think,
a small hat wearer.
Yeah, and also
But the
president.
line is
earlier.
traced through the female, not the male. So a female can't become Jewish by marrying a male Jew.
I'm not up to par with the South American politics that much, but I think she's the wife of other politician or a previous president. He was something like that, or a widow now because he didn't do good. I don't know, something like that. So, but yeah, definitely Zio.
And the potential for it to result in something along the lines of either she just disappears or, I mean, I'm just thinking about the fact that I'm looking at my notes as well, put down things about aliens, but even to the point where I could see them doing it just because everything's become so crazily over the top at the moment.
Scheinbaum, that's her name.
They could even do something like fly some drones over the presidential palace and make a big show of it, like UFOs turning up, and then disappear. And then they can just hold their hands up and go, "Oh, it wasn't us. It must have been the aliens that took her away."
Yeah.
Because the alien thing seems to have been, and why
4th of July. That's my prediction, and Trump is gonna say idiots.
Yeah,
he's gonna land something on the White House lawn.
I heard somebody talking about how he's already got a speech prepared.
That rumor.
The 4th makes sense, right?
And then when they ask, it's like, hey,
remember as well what I was saying about the fives, the 5-5.
I don't know.
Although that would be May, not March. Yeah.
Oh right, no, I thought because with the 250th anniversary, he's gonna do something big, some memorable fucking shit on that day.
Yeah.
And one of them is like showing the new tech that they have, and he cannot do that without fucking revealing any of the alien shit, because it's probably anti-gravity something. That's all my prediction, but we'll see.
Yeah, some kind of propulsion system.
Yeah, but they're not gonna get free energy. Forget about it.
No, they're not going to allow us to have generators based on that principle. No, it'll only be for fighter jets and missiles.
Yeah, military first for the first foreseeable future, 50 years, 100.
It will be such a difficult technology. Only the military will be capable of applying it, making it applicable. There'll be various excuses along those lines.
They have to, because the Chinese are doing the same. So I think that's like,
Instead, though, we might
get
Russians. Those thorium salt reactors. Possibly. But I think that's going to be maybe even kept behind the Chinese firewall, in the sense of they're not willingly going to allow it to be copied.
Yeah.
I know others are developing it as well, but I mean in the sense of, from what the information is showing, they've not only already fully developed it, they've already implemented it.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah.
So they've already got like naval
secret space program is real. Yes.
Yeah. So they've got I don't want to say washing machine size, but they're certainly the size of a large fridge. So again, it's a system that could be fit in the back of a truck. not an
Mhm.
18-wheeler. You're talking a truck, like a 7.5 ton, like a Luton van, as we would know it in the UK.
Yeah.
Yeah, that kind of size of reactor, which obviously is not meant to be pumping out tons and tons of power, but that would be big enough to power a small town. So if you could have
Yeah.
a local reactor for your town, it's something that wouldn't have to be very big. It wouldn't need a lot of running costs and maintenance and all that kind of shit. You'd only need a small number of people to operate it and take care of it. And it'd basically give you continuous energy, or pretty much largely continuous energy. You know?
Yeah, well, I'm
I
hearing
know
the
it,
secret that you could almost run it from a battery, a AA battery.
yeah, once you start the process,
Yeah. Yeah, and it
yeah,
starts producing more power almost immediately once you start
fuck
it up.
me. Sorry, Sam, I can't remember the technical term for it. But it's that process of once you start the reaction, it's self-feeding.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the result of the reaction feeds back in on itself. So it's self propagating.
Mhm.
There's a proper
Yeah, I
fucking
know what
term.
you're talking about, but I
Yeah.
cannot get it already. Yeah.
But yeah, potentially, yeah, once you've got it going, it doesn't need more energy or more. Occasionally, it will need new fuel top up. But even that is something that's not a major restriction on its running operation, on it.
No, it's not like fusion, right? Where you
No.
put two rods together and you get a runaway kind of a thing. What is that?
No.
What's the word for it?
Fucking hell.
Self-perpetuating? No.
We're failing
Because
on all the words tonight.
Well, we're failing on words, but self-regenerating? No.
It is that. That is what it's doing, yeah. But there's a specific terminology for that kind
Over
of
unity? No.
combustive self-consumption, which feeds back on itself.
Yeah, that's
I can't
over
think
unity.
of it.
So it's doing that. So it's it's not exactly a perpetual machine, but
No, it does have a lifespan, but it is very,
I
very
think it's
long.
cold. It's cold, so it's not hot. It's not like plasma hot, right?
Cool.
So
Yeah.
it's a version
Room
of cold
temperature
fusion,
almost.
maybe. I don't know.
So
But
a bit like a bit similar to some of the stuff that Bob Green
we'll see in June, July.
Possibly,
July. Yeah, we'll see.
But we mustn't forget that, you know, the evidence is there now, even though it is somewhat coincidental to a degree, but the evidence is there that they eat babies.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I'm going to try and keep the habit of at least once.
Yeah, I don't think
week,
humans do that, Puppy.
I'm going to say that because, you know, just like the COVID stuff, COVID was bullshit. I'm not going to stop saying that. 9/11 was an inside-out job.
Yep.
Yeah, not going to stop saying that.
Yep.
You know, these things have to be repeated because if we don't keep repeating them, they will change all the history books, and future generations will never fucking figure out what the fuck happened. In the same way that there's so many people now who struggle to accept that certain things happened previous to their lifespan. Well, maybe you should include the lifespan of some of their family members. Usually their parents is what they'll often refer to. You know, so once you get back about 200 plus years, there's all this stuff now out there where people are just like, well, we can't know for certain what's there. The whole world could have been completely changed within the last few hundred years. And you go, oh, for fuck's sake. In other words, that's literally what the party wants you to believe. There was nothing before the party. The party is the beginning of everything. There can be nothing outside of the party. That's one thing she didn't say in a definition of fascism, mate. Some of those classic Mussolini quotes. Fascism is. Yeah, there is nothing beyond the party. There can be nothing outside of the party. There can be nothing without the party. It's also sort of partly encapsulated in Orwell's work. That's the idea, you know. The party is everything. Its father, its mother, its homeland, its provider, its security, its protector, its messiah. The party is everything. Yeah, that's something that's being repeated a lot at the moment, even though in some ways it might be a bit more subtle in the way they're presenting it, but they are basically saying the same thing to us. Did
you mention Mendelssohn in the first hour?
I didn't, but I do have it in my notes, so I was too busy fucking
I
digressing.
got a
all
little
over the place.
clippy. You can lead us in.
Mandelson was arrested
Yeah.
just this afternoon before
Yeah.
I was setting up. So yeah,
Got a
go for it.
video.
If you got a clip.
That's a short one, so just him getting arrested.
Yeah, that's cool.
Of the undercover body cam.
Well, we'll see.
Yeah, it's not for the kiddie shit. Same with Andrew. It's not for the kiddie shit.
No,
It's leaking
malfeasance in
confidential stuff and government stuff and that stuff.
Because if they, yes, I will do. They know if they start prosecuting people for any of the crimes to do with the child trafficking and all that kind of stuff, that means evidence is going to have to be presented in court, which is inevitably going to indicate that the network extends further beyond the person who's currently standing in that courtroom. So in other words, they can't try them for those crimes. They have to use something else to make the public think that there's some kind of justice taking place, but there isn't.
Yeah, they're doing something. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're making
But
it
it's not
look
looking
like
good for Starmer.
something's
It's
happening to him.
looking worse and worse for him. So
same as Andrew. They're going to make it look like something's going to happen to him, like some kind of justice is done, but it won't be.
Yeah.
At the worst, he will
He's
suffer
still,
the same.
yeah. No, he's not a royal anymore.
At the worst, he'll suffer the same fate as Napoleon. He'll get to live out the rest of his life on a nice little island somewhere, maybe in the Mediterranean Sea, where he'll have all his requirements provided for him. He'll have a fairly good standard of living, and he'll just be allowed to live out his natural life there. Won't be allowed to leave, won't be allowed to interact with the rest of the world. But possibly, mate, but that, I can't remember the name of the island that took Napoleon on.
Yeah,
But
that's yours, so you can put him there with the monkeys.
Yeah, probably we could, yeah. So at the most, he's going to be sort of excommunicated in that sense, yeah. But nothing else is going to happen to him. He's not going to be put in the general population in prison. Yeah,
no, and even if it's not solving any problems really. No. Well, a minor one, but I think the main one is still the Savile case and what he pulled in the UK, because what he was doing is mostly outside and
that has started to bubble
not true
up
either,
again.
but yeah.
And I know this sounds a bit weird, but I'm glad to say that because
that shit is way closer to home than Epstein Island.
Yeah, like we've been talking about. I thought eventually it would start coming up again.
I hope so.
Because the Epstein stuff has obviously been more of a general interest and concern to people in the USA, because that was where he spent most of his time and did his shit. Yeah, Corsica, thank you.
Yeah,
thanks,
mate.
Yeah. But for us, Savile was the equivalent of Epstein.
Yeah.
And when we've had like this last couple of weeks of this sort of slush effect of all these files being pumped out and people doing various things with them to analyze them and whatever and look through them.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that there's almost zero to no mention about Savile, but it was going to come up again. And I thought, hopefully, this will get people to turn back and go, hang on a minute, nothing was ever really done about all that shit, was it? And then we've got all the stuff to do in the UK at the moment. We've got all the stuff to do with the rape gangs.
Yep.
And that's still ongoing. And it turns out, even though, again, some of us insane conspiracy theorists were talking about this kind of shit years ago, but it's already started to be pointed out that Starmer just happened to be in that position of the head of the justice system at the time when a lot of the more likely successful cases were being presented. In other words, when the police were starting to go, look, we've got all this evidence against this network of people. We need to pursue this case and actually start arresting and prosecuting people. That was around the time when it all stopped. And rather than actually pursuing any cases that were being formulated at the time, they issued this thing that they called a kind of notification warning This man, fucking forgetting technical names now. But it was called something like a notification, noticing, a guardian notification or something like that. The bullshit claim was if somebody was suspected of doing something illicit with a minor, a child, usually a girl, yeah. And when you're talking about pubescent or adolescent girls, so girls that are already like 13, 14, these men were being checked up on or investigated by the police. So they had a suspicion of them, but they couldn't prove any actual crime yet, other than, you know, the girl spending time with these guys. So what they were doing instead, rather than pursuing a further investigation, they were issuing them these notifications. So basically, they were warning them. They were saying, "Oh, well, careful what you're doing, guys, because we can see what you're doing. Yeah, so you better hide it a bit more, otherwise we'll have to come and investigate you." That's pretty much what they were doing, and he sanctioned it. He come up with that idea and sanctioned its use. So a lot of the cases that were already building up during that time were suddenly just dropped and all pushed aside, and it was allowed to carry on again for another 10 years or more.
Yeah, his policy trickled down to the police, and it became orders there. Like, you know, that's how we fucking operate now. So that
they
was
were treated
him
as
largely organizing.
They were treated. The girls were treated, because it was mainly girls. The girls were treated as being consensual. Because the British law, unfortunately, has a bit of a grey area on underage sex. Yeah. Because we have this kind of ability to argue in the court that it was a consensual relationship. And if the child agrees with that, and they agree and they say, yes, I wanted it, yes, I was a willing participant, blah, 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 the perpetrator can't be prosecuted. So even though we supposedly got an age limit of 16 in the UK, it's not strictly enforced, and it hasn't been for a long time.
Okay.
Again, since the 90s, I think, since Blair. I'm not sure if it goes back to Thatcher.
Yeah.
Maybe it does, but I can't remember. I wasn't looking at that kind of information.
Well, they actually tried to lower their age a couple of times.
Yeah, they've tried repeatedly.
Yeah. They
Even,
keep trying, and now they're going to use the Muslims as an excuse to do it.
Yep.
But
because, you know, they like marrying the young girls, don't they? Yeah.
It's legal there, so they can bring their brides back.
They like securing their property in advance.
12 is legal in Iraq, so all the Iraqis coming here can bring a 12-year-old bride back, pregnant,
and they'll probably get.
And that's happening. Yep.
Well, yeah, that's something that's going to keep being promoted, because if you haven't noticed, they're really trying hard to get you to be violent and aggressive. I was just thinking about some of the stuff that came out about Manchester. I do think there was provocation involved in that as well, and obviously it's been whipped up into a deliberate imagery that serves that narrative purpose. Yeah, that's being pushed across the media. But there is a real hard push now, and I know I've been banging this drum for the past few fucking years now, because we're reaching a crescendo of it. They want you to get mad and out in the street and get violent with everyone else around you, especially everyone else versus the Muslims. Yeah, and I'm not denying that there's bad guys amongst them. There is. I'm not denying that there's outright criminals and all that kind of shit. I'm not. But the system really, really, really wants a sectarian war between us and them. And who does that fucking serve? Yeah, there's one small ethnic group that really loves that conflict. Yeah,
Islam has to do fucking reform, right? We did that like 300 years ago.
Yeah, and all the criminals.
And Islam needs to do that, and I think you know that's happening as well. Like, you know, so yeah.
It's not that because they are
behind; they're lagging.
there are crimes happening, yes. Even the very fact that for a lot of them they're coming into the country illegally and all that kind of shit. Yes, there is. There are crimes being committed.
Same with the
But that
priests. Same with the
doesn't
fucking
mean
all that.
but that doesn't mean we need a fucking sectarian, religious or race war kind of fucking
No,
bullshit.
there's only one benefiting from that one.
Exactly.
It's not us. It's not them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're gonna, I think as well, we're going to end up with a parliament that's populated by politicians, supposedly living beings, and it's going to be just a mixture. They're either going to be Zionist in some form, or they're going to be Muslim.
They are already.
And that'll be it. You know, it will just be one mixture of those two groups, and that'll be it. Yeah, and that's happening.
I remember Starmer. My family is all Zionist, but yeah, I'm not. I'm Christian.
You can't say he's Zionist because he prefers the WEF. Yeah. But yeah, to bring us back, because we're sort of rolling up towards the hour, so I'll wrap it up in a minute. I've got a fairly long song I want to play. I say long, it's like 6-7 minutes, but
that's all right. I got one 9 minutes for tomorrow or for Wednesday. So.
Oh, cool. But to bring it back, yes, the illusion of choice, right, definitely. To bring it back to what I was sort of trying to ramble around the idea, the concept of to start with. Yeah, there's a situation now to be able to, with clarity, say that particular thing is definitely the distraction, and that other particular thing over there is definitely the one and only thing you should be paying attention to. I don't think it, trying to achieve that, you'll probably drive yourself a bit insane. You'll certainly make yourself very worn out and pissed off trying to do that at the moment, because it's not like it's been for quite a number of years in the past where occasionally some major event would happen or some particular politician would say the wrong thing out loud and get arrested, like what's happened to Mandelson recently. The events like that would occur just every so often, and we would be able to have our talks and discussions about them, and we could go for a few weeks on just one event. But now, in the last few years, and certainly in the last year, they have been throwing everything up in the air so deliberately. They want as much chaos as possible. And I know this sounds, well, how should I say it? This might sound a bit black-pilled in some people's perception. And I'm not saying this because I want you to be sad about this thing, but part of what I was talking about earlier is that inevitability of the natural process of everything is that it changes over time. It transforms, it transmutes over time. It's just how long is your perception of time? What time period are you talking about? How long does it take? But that expectation that we could ever do or say anything that would reverse time and take us back to a time period that we have a fondness for whatever reason. So 2019, as some people say, if we could only just go back to prior to the craziness of the COVID bullshit, even that would be better than all this shit at the moment. But we can't go back. And even if we were totally successful in dealing with these people that cause all this shit or perpetuate all this shit, it would still never be the same as back then that you're thinking about, you remembering, because that was a different time period that is not allowing for everything else that's happened since then. Yeah, and everything else that's happened since then has coloured this moment now. It's like a process of cooking or fermentation. Once something's been added into the mix, you can't take it out again. So it adds to whatever the current result or the current flavour of the cooking is, So we can't go back. So please don't tie yourself up in mental and spiritual knots trying to think that you can do something. Something could happen. If only we arrested all the paedophiles, it would fix the problem. We could go back to just like it was, blah, 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 blah. No, that's not going to help you in any way in the long run. But there can certainly be an expectation of creating heaven on earth, because, and I was tempted to use this as the title, the subtitle for tonight, but I think pointing out the
Computer and program. Was that it?
No, mate, I've been trying that for years, mate. Yeah. That's not new, that meme. We've been doing it since
I know,
the 90s,
but it's fucking, It's,
But I nearly used this phrase as the subtitle. I was just going to put "You are heaven." And I'm sure people will quickly go, "Oh, it's a bit cheesy, a bit sloppy, mate, a bit overly romantic, or maybe even a bit delusional." You could even say it's a little bit sexualized in some manners. It depends how people use those words, how they're applied in context. But the way I intend them is thinking about it. As I've talked about before, they give us this idea of a pyramid, and that they're on top of the pyramid, and the pyramid passes energy in the form of valuable stuff. That's what most people think of it as. Money is a pocket of energy, a note that says I owe you so much energy. That all gets passed or drawn up the pyramid to the top. And the people at the top get all the greatness, all the wealth, all the stuff, because they're the ones that are at the top of the pyramid. How does nature work? Does nature make things go upwards? They don't, do they? They don't go up. If you put a pebble at the bottom of the pyramid, the pebble's not going to make its way up the fucking pyramid, is it? No, things go down. Gravity, or what we call and refer to as gravity, and I'm not suggesting to explain that at the moment. That again is another conversation. But the way we're taught and the way we perceive what happens in the natural world is things go downwards. If it had a sloped edge, anyway, not steps necessarily, but if it had a sloped edge, if you put that pebble at the top of the pyramid, it's going to roll all the way down, isn't it? So this idea that everything filters up is just wrong in a natural sense. But if the pyramid went down, then everything at the top is being rolled down into the bottom, isn't it? So these people, or whatever the fuck they are, whoever the fuck they are, wherever the fuck they're from, they sit at the bottom of this pit that they tell us is a pyramid, because they love to invert everything. So they tell us that it's the other way up, that it's a pyramid, and they're sat at the top because they're so fantastic. They deserve to be sat at the top. But it's actually going down. And everything that we try and do, everything that we try and create, or we try and keep a hold of, gets pulled down into that middle pit. So everything, all the shit rolls downhill. I like that line that Jarvis Cocker put in "Cunts are still running the world." They say that cream rises to the top, but shit floats. So. But all I'm trying to say here is, they try to give us the perception that heaven is something outside of ourselves. It exists separate from us. It's somewhere else. It's somewhere that has a door on it, a gate, and you have to get special permission to be let in, because you're a dirty creature. You can't be in heaven. You can't be part of heaven's great creation, the Creator's great creation. No, you're outside heaven, and you have to prove that you're a good guy so you can be allowed back in again. That's such a bullshit. Why the fuck would a great creator create this amazing thing, this amazing creation, and then put it outside from himself and go, all of you are over there and you're not allowed in unless you're somebody that I like? How is that the creator of all goodness? He already knows everything that's inside that creation.
I like that. I like that DMT guy, what he said. Like, God is running all kinds of simulation. He's not done with creation, right? He's constantly creating, simulation after simulation after simulation.
Perpetual motion machine of constant transmutation.
Yeah,
that's what this creation is. We experience a sense of linearity simply because of our perception within it, but that's not what it is.
We know.
But in that description, these people, if you think of them as people that sit at the so-called top or bottom of that pyramid. They want to convince us that they're the ones that are all the greatest and the best, the do-gooders, the best ones in the world. They're the top of the heap because they're at the top of the pyramid, so they must be. But that means that our concept of heaven has been portrayed and has been occupied, has been invaded, and full of immigrants of these fucking bullshit artists, demonic, psychopathic entities, archonic entities, as some would refer to them as. And they're now trying to convince us that what they're telling us is the real version of heaven. But I would argue that the way we try to exist with each other, I know we don't always agree on every point, we don't always like wearing the same kind of style of clothing. Some of us like wearing different colours. Some of us like having long hair, some like short hair. We all got our different little tastes and preferences and opinions on shit. But other than that, we actively try to live together because we understand the benefit of a shared community, because multiple people can achieve far more than individuals can. Could show you a little video clip of some Amish people moving an entire barn, literal just manpower. They fit some beams underneath it, they literally lift it up and walk along with it and move it physically. That is a demonstration of tribal collective power that has nothing to do with these ideas, these ismism ideas of collectivism or whatever, communitarianism, whatever the fuck they want to label it as. This is just people understanding the altruistic feedback process, because reality is a mirror. Oh, if I help this guy, if I help my neighbour move his barn, then when I need to move my barn, he will come along and help me. It's just as simple as that. We all survive better. We have a greater chance of survival by working together. And the majority of us understand that. And most of our parents taught us the same kind of principles. So if you want to talk about heaven, we already are heaven. We are already building heaven. But they think it has to be built out of marble bricks with gold lining and shiny shit and gems and jewels and all the fancy stuff. Everybody fucking loves it. That's not heaven. We're building heaven. It's not made out of physical stuff. So at the moment, with all this shit that's happening and all the weirder than weirdness that they're putting in front of us, suggesting aliens are there, again, you could say another tick box for the conspiracy theories. But, let's see what else hopefully they will carry on with that narrative. They're not going to just drop it, because they will unfortunately have to give a certain amount of truth out.
No. The UFO community is very loud and
Yeah,
aggressive.
Yeah, but there is going to be some truthful snippets in there, and that's a limited hangout benefit.
Yeah, no, the government. You're not going to get shit from the government.
No,
no
not
truth
directly from them. No,
you're going to get something, but no truth. No.
Yeah.
No.
And then the cancer cure thing in a similar fashion. Yeah, pretty much the same. Yeah, you'll get some goodness out of it, but they're certainly not going to give you the truth.
Well,
and they're
still
not going to
10,000. So.
Yeah, and they're not going to stop with the injection concepts.
It's under 1,000.
So the whole idea is they're going to use the AI robotic testing system, that experimental repetition system, to create mRNA injections, and then they'll try and convince you that this latest injection is the one that you need. You always need the next update. Come back next month.
Well, the people that had the update are gonna be begging for the cure. The cure.
Yeah.
So that's a different kind of a thing. But he was saying like now it costs $1 million to make a dose, and it's gonna be 10 times cheaper. So that's 100,000. So it's still not cheap.
Yeah.
Well, is your life worth 100,000, Cookie? Here's the insurance you can.
100,000 what?
To make sure that you already have your cells on
$100,000
stock. Yeah,
100,000 baht.
Probably 100,000 pounds. 100,000 pounds at least. Yep.
100,000 angels dancing on the head of a pin. But yeah,
Yeah. Well, again,
the
you know.
craziness at the moment is not going to stop anytime soon. I think we need to discuss more about the question, and I know this could end up being a silly argument in some ways. That's not my intention, but I think we need to discuss the question about distraction, or that concept of distraction.
Mm.
Because as things get more restrictive, as the wheel grinds harder, and it will, we're not at the peak of all this shit yet, I don't think. I think we've gone past the peak of them demonstrating their sense of power and dominance, but we've got to experience the lag of that trickle-down effect for it fucking up our lives.
No,
on
I got a
day-to-day
lot
basis,
more
yeah.
conspiracies like answers too. So,
Yeah.
moon landing,
Yeah.
that could be also on this year. Like,
Oh,
they're
yeah,
gonna
yeah.
go to the moon
Yeah.
again and that shit.
Yeah.
Well, they have equipment failure at the moment, so maybe you know, they have to extend it a little bit. But
There's pills
Yeah.
for that now, you know.
fucking NASA. Well, we'll see. But yeah, next month
We
maybe.
might, yeah, I would add as well, and I know this is just a bit of an extra sort of open-ended tack on the end, but I think we might see a paradigm shift in NASA, inevitably having to go along with the change in technology. Because if they're no longer going to try and hide or deny the changes in the propulsion tech that they're using, then obviously that's going to affect the NASA stuff that they're doing as well. So we'll see. Yeah.
Some of it, some of it. I think we still need rockets because they are going to say like, no, it's element from 115, and we only got a little bit of that. So it's very hard to make.
Yeah.
So we cannot give that to everybody. It's only ours.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's going to be something like that, very limited hangout. But yeah.
Yeah. So don't believe all the crazy weirdness. It is going to get weirder. I think the discussion about what is or is not a distraction is an open-ended one, but worth talking about. Because the principle of what's worth your time and what's not is obviously a very subjective point. Yeah. Oh, shit. I nearly
Share the link one more time for the peeps.
We've got a question. I should have asked this at the start, shouldn't I? I should have said, has anyone got a particular question they want me to ask? I suppose I could ask the alien question. Are we going to get a definite, distinct, maybe I should say something that would satisfy even my
disclosure?
Maybe that's too harsh of a requirement.
Well, I have to say it's like from a non-human kind of intelligence.
Right? If I just require
we found something
of it being genuine, not fakes, not blue beam, not pretend
no. They have actual
shit.
stuff, so we
something that's definitely genuine enough, even if it's vague, even if it's just lights in the sky. But are we going to get some definite, genuine proof this year? Maybe I should stipulate that, but I've already drawn it now. Fucking hell. It is not a cat's vagina. Even though you may think it is. Maybe we've stuck it in a little bit of fur.
I think a large part of the missing Epstein files is stiff stuff like this, like the conspiracy stuff, 9/11 and all that.
Oh, it's called Standstill. ISA. That's almost ISIS. Obviously, it can't be inverted because of the shape of it. Oh dear, the winter of spiritual life is upon us. You may find yourself entangled in a situation to whose implications you are, in effect, blind. I'd take that as a definite no, or that the result will remain ambiguous. I mean, I did specify this year, so maybe, that means it's open-ended, possibly. But I won't bother reading anymore because just those few lines were quite definitive, for such a simple yes-no question anyway. Yeah, we're not going to find any good genuine evidence this year.
Oh,
According to my bag of runes, but that's just my bag of runes.
we're never going to be satisfied anyway because like
there'll always
yeah,
be
we got gray
questions.
aliens. Okay, and what about the reptilians and the Nordics and whatever mantids? Yeah.
I want to see that guy that had
it's
a
never going to be
lion's body. Yeah, that one the Sumerians were obsessed with the lion's body and the wings. I want to see that alien, please. Yeah.
I think it's going to be like Fifth Element kind of stuff, like Egyptian lore. It's going to play into it, maybe.
I do think once we get out there, we're going to encounter the reality that just like down here, there'll be lots of different species of stuff. This creation doesn't make just one.
Yeah, it's
type
not one.
Of
yeah,
thing.
it's more than one.
Yeah. And I don't adhere to the concept that we are the only sentient life in reality.
That makes it so complicated, right?
I don't think that defeats God. I don't think that denies God. God would not have a problem with there being multiple different kinds of species.
Lynn is checking the tarot cards.
Oh, yeah, cool.
Shall we wait for that, Lynn? Go for it.
If you're doing a single card draw, it'd be quick enough, asking the same question.
Aliens.
Genuine evidence of something.
Confirmation.
Yeah.
Like undeniable.
Yeah. That it can't be attributed to being human in any way, or that's some kind of technology that we've already got, that kind of thing. It's got to be something that is labelled by the majority of people as being, that's got to be alien. There's no way that's done by humans.
Yeah, because even anti-gravity is not that definitive alien proof. But
yeah, I'm still open to the possibility that some.
Oh, she did it. She's not going to do it. She has.
Oh, I thought. Okay.
Done it for years, haven't done it maybe. But are you going to do it, Lynn?
Yeah. Well, if you do, just put the answer.
It's a good idea for the ladies' show. You girls do tarot reading.
Yeah.
On Rob.
On how many girlfriends is he going to get altogether?
Is he gay?
Is he going to beat the
next time? Promise.
Genghis Khan's record?
Next time.
He's got a fair way to go to beat Genghis Khan. Yeah. I bet you probably got a little bit of Genghis Khan in you. Not right now, but from
not
from the past. That's what I mean. Like, not right now. But yeah, don't get too caught up in all the craziness, because it is going to keep getting crazier. Potentially, we could be going to war and all that kind of shit. I know I've been saying this for a while. So yeah, time to start thinking more seriously about those just general preparations. You don't have to dig a bunker. You don't have to live up on the top of a mountain or any shit like that.
No.
Just make sure you got a few, maybe a couple of weeks worth of food supplies on hand. Some candles, some matches, some batteries, a torch, a radio, usual kind of sensible stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Just keep them on hand, and also make sure you've got a way of knowing people's contact details that doesn't require you to turn on an electrical device. In other words, don't rely on your phone working for you to look up somebody's phone number or their home address. Because if there was something like a big solar flare or an EMP attack, all those devices will stop working. So you won't be able to bring up that information. So either learn to remember it, or have an actual map book of your local area.
Or download them on your phone so you at least have them, right? So because you can use them offline.
Digital.
Yeah, but you can use them offline.
Yeah, you don't need to be connected to the internet to view them then,
No.
But yeah, just have a little address book, old school address book. And the people you really care about, that you're concerned about, have them noted down in physical hard copy version. Don't rely on the electronic media, because it might not always function.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, anyway, in a similar fashion, I'm going to play a song that's from 2012.
Ooh.
And this was one of the first guys that were really sort of getting into well-produced, seriously produced, not just made in the garage at home kind of music productions that was addressing a lot of these questions about the so-called New World Order, and the style of how he done his stuff was very much on point to the way social media was developing at the time, you know. So he doesn't do anything anymore, as far as I know, but his stuff's still online if you want to look it up. Evolution, hello mate, hope you're well. The disclosure will be that we are the aliens, a species of criminals dropped off here like Australia. Oh, that's Scientology shit, man. Do you think we're all one of those souls that got dumped in the volcano because we were evil criminals that were fighting against the Empire? It's like a fucking Star Wars narrative, man. But yeah, you never know. I could find that out. That would be a chalk one up for Tom Cruise and his mates, you know. Turns out Tom Cruise was right. We were all alien ghosts from a different planet. That'd be funny as fuck if it did turn out that way. Yes, don't forget, please tune in tomorrow for Not Dr. Rob, Health Freedom UK.
Yep.
His band will be up by then, so be back on YouTube.
Back on Poop Tube.
If you haven't noticed, he is back already because he's done some dailies shorts. So, yeah, tune in for that, and then we'll be back on Wednesday. So thanks for giving me, mainly me, because it was me waffling primarily. Thanks for giving us your attention. Thanks to Pete for jumping in when he got the chance.
Yep.
And we'll see you again soon.
See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
This is a guy who called himself Embed. E-M-B-E-D. You can find his stuff on YouTube still. Check it out if you like this kind of stuff. He's a few songs on his album, on his channel. Worth a good listen. So yeah, see you again soon. Catches.
If there is anyone out there who still doubts that America is a place where all things are possible, who still wonders if the dream of our founders is alive in our time, who still questions the power of our democracy, tonight is your answer. We are and always will be the United States of America.
cause, willing and able, it beat the words of the devil, telling you that you're a rebel. What freedom means to the average citizen is not what the Western world has given them. Now it's time for a lesson. Date of 9 and 11. Blaze and demolition, civilian shiver, a million barrels of oil to deliver. Fabricating a threat from the sinners, and they get to play the lawgivers.
So, in conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, a new world is emerging. It is a new world order with significantly different and radically new challenges for the future.
And they get to play the lawgivers. Because liberty's light is fading. Pyramid schemes, myriad dream from the eagle's nest. They'll consider your needs. Preying on the masses, we've all seen I-beams. Satellites watching you daily and nightly. And rightly so, you're a menace. Trespass on my premise with malice. No more banners you'll put on the palace unless you keep your balance. So, how far do you go for survival? Eliminate your rivals, get tribal, antagonize, be wise, conquer, divide, at the end be civilized. Our armies walk the world, what war resist? We'll call it third. The people heard, it is when you hear the words. World War IV or fifth or worse. Preying on the masses, we've all seen I-beams. Satellites watching you daily and nightly. And they get to play the lawgivers. And they get to play the lawgivers.
It's not a new idea. President Bush talked about it back in 1991. It is a big idea. A new world order where diverse nations are drawn together in common cause.
He's proposing to set up what's essentially a private organization to try to achieve what he couldn't get done when he was the U.S. Trade Representative. And this is a business agenda.
The future of American international economic policy, which affects not only our nation's prosperity, but its national security, will be set not by the American people and their elected representatives, but by a small corporate elite that is accountable to no one, effectively surrendering the sovereignty of the United States. And people better understand that exactly what they're saying. It's a new world order they're trying to create. They're trying to do so without approval or consent of the government of this country. And this is a straightforward assault by the elitists.
I think do you know what fascism is? You know what fascism is?
To America,
You know what Nazis are?
No, wait, sir, wait,
You
sir.
know what
When
Nazis
fascism
are? You know
comes
what
to America, it
fascists
will
are?
not be in brown and black shirts. It will not be with jack boots. It will be Nike sneakers and smiley shirts. Smiley. The fascism. Germany lost the Second World War. Fascism won it. Believe
And
me,
actually,
my friend.
fascism is when corporations become the government.
Yes.
Welcome to your awakening. Please take off as your reality is adjusted.